Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our presentation on a Froebelian approach. My name is Faye Almond, and this is Josephine Goldie, and we're from Little Beehive Nursery in Strathkinnis. Firstly, we will start by telling you a little bit about who we are before moving on to talk about our professional learning, who is Froebel, our nursery ethos, play outdoors, community, gifts and occupations, before summarising with a conclusion. Jo and I work at Little Beehive Nursery in Strathkinnis, a small village just outside St Andrews in Fife. We have a strong community feel with lots of access to local green spaces. We opened in August 2015 and I have been the lead practitioner here since December 2015. Jo is the room leader plus in our preschool room and has worked here for over 6 years. We have a baby room, a toddler room and a preschool room with an overall capacity for 56 children. Our staff team consists of 18 people ranging from trainee staff to EYPs and senior staff. Over the past 3 years, the staff team have embarked on a number of professional learning opportunities. I began my BA at Edinburgh University back in 2017 and graduated in the summer of 2020. It was during this time that I began to learn about the theories and ideas of Froebel. As I learned more, I began to realise that many of his ideas were closely linked to my own interests of nature and outdoors, community, as well as sewing and baking. Over to you, Jo.
So back a couple of years ago, I was observed in practice working in the room by one of our directors, and she gifted me a book on Froebelian Approach. From then, it led me to look and discover about different theorists, my own styles and my own interests. From there, I was then put forward to do the Froebelian Childhood Practice course, and that was from 2020 to 2021 at Edinburgh University. During this time, I learnt about the Froebelian pedagogy, forms, gifts and occupations, and I had the opportunity to look around different nurseries in Edinburgh, different Froebelian nurseries, and reflect on my own practice and take part in a development project at the nursery.
It was at this point that Jo and I felt that we wanted to share our knowledge with our team, and we began to explore some of the pamphlets provided by the Froebel Trust. We reflected on these and began to slowly introduce new resources and experiences for children. We've developed this further with two further senior members of staff taking on the Froebel in Childhood Practice at Edinburgh University over the past year. Froebel advocated that children need adults who can both recognise the importance of play and can understand and use their knowledge of the child in which to base their practice. So who is Froebel? Well, he was born in 1782 in Germany. In 1840, he established the first kindergarten, a garden for children in Blankenberg. Through his work and writing, Froebel succeeded in changing the way we think about childhood and the education of young children. His ideas about learning through nature and the importance of play spread throughout the world, and they continue to have relevance today. This is shown in some of our national documents, such as the section in Realising the Ambition. Much of what we now take for granted in early years and childcare has its origins in Froebel's ideas. Outdoor play is an obvious example. Other ways include play with blocks, sand, water, clay, finger rhymes, painting and drawing. Familiar practices such as observation-led planning and partnerships with parents and the wider community can be traced back to his work.
Moving on to our nursery ethos. So back in September 2021, we looked at our Q&A, and our question that we asked the parents and the families was, what is your vision for the nursery? We had some lovely things come in, and there was lovely common themes between the children and staff and families, and these themes were kindness, friendship, play, curiosity and creativity. With that all together, we came up with our joint vision, which is to create a nursery that values kindness, fun and adventure through quality experiences with a focus on positive connections with children, families and the local community. We looked to extend this throughout our room, creating a bright and open space, as you can see in our photos. We have lovely plants throughout the room, incorporating the natural world, bringing the outside in. We have a lovely balcony space also, which brings the outdoors in, which is hugely Froebelian and really important to us. Also to look out across the community, we have lovely farms to look out on as well. And bringing this all together, we thought of a lovely quote that we could share with you. Children are like tiny flowers. They are varied and need care, but each is beautiful alone and glorious when seen in a community of peers. As previously spoken about, we have plants across our room and we have plants across the full nursery now. We worked with a company local to us to create a lovely environment with lovely plants that are from Scotland and also around for the children to explore. The children learn about nurturing and pride in themselves. Looking after the plants brings out joy to them and it helps them learn how to look after different living things. Maths and numeracy is also hugely important in this aspect, measuring out water, how much different plants need, learning how to feel the soil, is this dry, is it wet, do we need more, different language like that's used also. So in our pictures here you can see some of our girls tending to our plants. We've got different spray bottles and watering bottles and the children love to look after the plants. We have also a lovely picture there of one of our girls and she said, let's leave them on the balcony so that they can have some sun. Moving on now to our imaginary basket. This was something that I had thought of myself actually. We wanted to promote storytelling in the room and we didn't quite have enough resources that we felt like provoked the interest. So I gathered a great big basket and collected different items. We also put in some items and they're lovely exciting things. We've got papyrus in it, tiger's fur, a top hat. There's a compass, jewels and lovely things like this. That promotes imagination, listening to others. And we have a picture of one of our boys here and what he said when he was using the hat was, this is our magic hat. I can turn you into a mouse. And our basket is now named our magic basket.
There is a huge amount of theory from Froebel, but for the purposes of our presentation, we've decided to focus on 3 key areas. So we'll start firstly by talking about play outdoors. So Froebel's ideas included connectedness, so the thought that everything links together, living in harmony with nature, freedom with guidance. So Froebel's thoughts about this were that children should be able to help themselves, think for themselves, make choices, solve problems, and to follow their own interests. It's about valuing uniqueness and individuality within strong, supportive community. Open-ended play is really important, and exploration. And finally, the key role of the adult in supporting and extending play and learning. Continuing now with the theme of outdoor play, we'd like to tell you a little bit about our garden development. So in 2021, myself, Joe and the team attended the Froebel Trust conference and we saw a really inspiring nursery that, due to the impact of COVID, had introduced a garden drop-off for children. We really loved this idea and we decided to take it and develop it at our nursery. And we introduced a system where children are dropped off at 8 o'clock in the morning and then spend the entire morning outside in the garden. This change had many benefits. The first one being parents and carers were able to hand over to us at the start of the day, so we were really able to begin to re-establish some of these relationships that had kind of fallen to the wayside, I guess, due to the impact of COVID and parents having less contact or physical contact with staff members. So this was really nice to start building those connections again. And prior to the new system, we had a lot of transitions throughout the morning. So children arriving at nursery, coming out to the garden, coming back into the garden for lunch. And this often took a lot of time. It sometimes could be quite stressful with changing clothes, all these different procedures that we had to kind of go through throughout the morning. We found that children being dropped off at 8 o'clock has really reduced this. We've been able to introduce a much slower pedagogy. Again, this is something we learnt about at the Froebel Trust conference. The mornings now are much more relaxed, and I think this has been a real benefit for staff and for children. There's much more time in the mornings to enjoy the experiences that they have in the garden, to explore their curiosities. We spend time planting and really, I guess, wallowing in the play, which has really been great. You can see in some of the pictures some of the work that we've done. So we've created some paving and some paths to help the garden flow better, to have more defined zones with real small spaces for children to explore. Before this, the garden was very muddy, which was great, and we loved it, and so did the children, but there's only so much mud I think we can put up with. We used to find that it would all get taken back into the main building again. So we tried to reduce some of it, and we've added turf and, like I say, the paving and pathed areas, which have really been great. We've added some raised beds. You can see there we've got a really beautiful willow structure and a wooden ladder. The children can explore risky play and things in this area as well. In addition to this, we also added an outdoor shed for the children to change into their outdoor clothing. This further helped to reduce some of the transitions, as well as the added benefit of reducing the mud that was being taken back into the main building. As you can see, we had pretty much a wasted space at the side of the nursery here, so we've added the shed. Inside the shed we've got pegs where the children hang their coats and bags. We've got racks where they can put their welly boots and things, and they come here first thing in the morning, hang their things up, and then head straight on through to the garden. After, we also added an outdoor toilet. Before we had this, it was really quite difficult because our toilet is actually upstairs in our building. So we often found that we would have to bring groups of children in to use the toilet, which often interrupted play, which wasn't ideal. So we've added our toilet, which has been really great, and much fewer trips inside now, obviously, to use the toilets. We also added some fruit trees, and there's a lovely picture here of one of our children picking the first apples that we harvested last year.
Continuing with our play outdoors, we looked to extend our play with an outdoor classroom. So now that we were spending our full morning outside, we wanted to create a cosy space that the children could retreat to if the weather wasn't great. Obviously, we're in Scotland and we have all the elements, so we wanted to create a space that the children felt safe and the families were happy with them spending outdoors, somewhere they could have snack also. So what we did was we had erected a lovely shed, and it has electricity inside, heating and lighting, and it's a lovely cosy space. I worked with the families and the children to create a list of things that we would like to have in the shed. I remember the children saying the thing that they wanted was to make it magic. So firstly, we created an area which is a fairy area. It has lots of lovely fairies out and different toadstools and animals that we could find around the Scottish countryside, like foxes and things like that. Also as well, in the outdoor classroom, we have our main focal point, which is our clay table. Clay is hugely important to us here, and it just brings everything back to the natural equipment and resources that we love to use. We also have a display out in the outdoor classroom, and that is a display of seasons. We wanted to make sure that the seasons were incorporated into the outdoor classroom, and we have a display board where children can stick things up, drawings, pictures and things like that. We also have our weaving outdoors, drawing and writing table, and a lovely story corner as well.
We will now move on to our next key theme, which is community. Froebel believed that children thrive when they are emotionally secure and in close relationships with others, including the family and the wider community. His kindergarten in Blankenberg was closely linked to his local community. He often took children to the town square to play games so that he could explain the value of play to the local people. The children visited local tradespeople such as the baker or the blacksmith, and this helped children make links between important work and their own lives. We often do this here in nursery. We've got the local garage and we've been up to see them working there. Working in close partnership with parents, families and community is a key part of the Froebelian theory, and he argued that any nursery or school should be in close and living relationship with people's lives. A sense of belonging really matters in Froebel's theory thinking.
Weekly, we take part in forest schools up in the local Bishop's Woods and Magasmuir. This is just across the crossroads from our nursery, and sometimes we take the minibus up there or the children will meet us up there in the morning. It's a huge multi-sensory experience with nature, and the children love to go up to the woods. They take part in den building, exploring different weathers, connecting with nature and learning how to respect trees, animals and the different things that they can find around. Children also love to climb the trees. Physical activity they take part in hugely up in the woods, and freedom with guidance, having the freedom to explore is just fantastic. So we have one of our boys up there climbing up a tree, and he just loves to look out across the vast space. Our girls here were catching some water, and we have a lovely quote from them which says, "I'm trying to catch the rain and turn it into a potion, just like Elsa." Continuing on the theme of forest schools, we love to extend our learning back at nursery. In our photo here, we have one of our children, and he'd made a boundary himself. At forest schools, we talk about boundaries and we create these with the children to keep us safe. They have the freedom to explore within these boundaries, but understanding safety is hugely important. So our child here had created a boundary, and then back at nursery he was so excited to draw what he'd made and to share it with his peers and family. He had such pride and joy from this, and we were all very, very proud of him. Also recently, last week at nursery, we had a forest school session, and the children had found some charcoal from a fire up in the woods. We took this back to nursery, and the children made some charcoal drawings. They drew different things that they could see around the forest and around the community, and this is just fantastic.
As well as forest schools in the community, we have recently begun working on our own plot at our community garden in Strathkinnis. We began by using a shared plot along with the local primary school, but more recently a space became available for us to develop our own area. We began by setting up a committee with parents, and we used some upcycled materials to build the fence, which you can see here in the picture, and the raised bed. We're still at the infancy of this project and are looking forward to develop this further over the summer. In the pictures here, you can see some of our children. I think they're harvesting potatoes there and taking care of plants through watering them and planting them. It's quite interesting to us that Froebel found his school in a rural community, in a small village where everyone knew everyone, and there was a lot of interconnectivity. We believe that our nursery is very similar to this, and we have some of the same qualities. As well as our own plot in the community garden, we have weekly visits to explore the rest of the garden. During these times, we meet with local people and we have the opportunity to explore other plants and vegetables that are growing. The children have the chance to discover the names of new plants. So here we can see one of our little boys pointing to the tulip and discovering the names of these. They can use their senses. So in the top right picture here, you can see one of the little children looking and feeling the plant's leaves and smelling them as well. So we really love to spend our time up here. So we're now going to move on to our final theme, which is gifts and occupations. Froebel devised a series of simple materials he called gifts and occupations for use in the kindergarten. These included small crocheted balls on strings for babies and a series of complex boxed blocks in the shape of a cube, subdivided into geometric shapes. Today we're going to focus more on occupations. So occupations included sewing, weaving, paper folding, paper pricking, clay, sticks and peas for construction, parquetry and woodwork. Through play with these resources, children could simultaneously explore and represent forms of life, so creating and representing things and experiences from the world around them, forms of beauty, for example, pattern, order, symmetry and harmony, and forms of knowledge, so things like mathematical form and scientific concepts. So many of these resources in early years settings today have their roots in the gifts and occupations. So for example, wooden blocks, clay, woodwork, painting and drawing.
Now moving forward to weaving. We've bought a loom for our nursery, and it's a kind of medium-sized loom, and we use it with wool, but we also use it with outdoors things like leaves, ferns, and it's really exciting. The children it helps them to become confident, resilient learners who take part in risks and express their ideas in creative ways. Developing hand-eye coordination, supporting independence and fine motor skills, exploring shape and pattern, and instilling a sense of pride. We have lovely photos there with our children, and first of all I just started to show them with the process with the in and out, and they took it on board hugely and now are independently using the loom. So for the loom, like I had said, I taught the children how to weave it in and out, and we use a large wooden needle for this. The children also like to use their fingers to pull it through, and the focus and concentration and the lovely observations that we've had through this have just been excellent. We have lovely videos also of the children using it, and the parents are all so proud and happy of the things that we've made. Once a week in the preschool room, we take part in a baking or cooking activity. We have different books that the children can choose from, and recently we have been also celebrating different cultures and different celebrations and exploring this through our baking and cooking. The children are exploring weight and volume. They are looking at different celebrations, like I said. On Robert Burns Day, we made oatcakes, and on Easter we made hot cross buns. The full process of this, the hot cross buns itself, took the full day. So we needed to start with making the dough, proving the dough, cooking it, and this took the children could see the full process through it and the ingredients and how it all combined together, which was really, really great. The children also extends our understanding of food and where food comes from. Recently we've grown potatoes and taken them indoors and made wedges from them. The children also learn how to source ingredients. We come down to our kitchen, take different ingredients, make lists for us to take to the shops to buy different ingredients, and how to follow a recipe in the right order. Children have been learning new techniques such as kneading, stretching, rolling, developing muscles and finger and hand-eye coordination skills also. We use real tools whilst baking, like sharp knives for cutting, and this promotes risk-taking and the children being able to manage their own risk if they say. Since doing so many baking and cooking activities weekly, we've seen the children and how they are incorporating this into their play. We've seen hugely in our outdoor classroom and in our home corner indoors. The children have been using our loose parts to make and bake and share food with others, and the conversations they have with each other are just fantastic. So they're interacting with each other through role play, using the loose parts and connecting with each other, and it's all around food. Moving on to clay. Like I said previously, in our outdoor classroom, we have our main focus point in the centre of the room is our clay table. Prior to this, we had our clay table kind of pushed back to this corner of the room. We'd felt like it was a bit of an afterthought, and clay is so hugely important to us and the natural resources that we wanted to make it our main focus. The focus was more kind of on the utensils that were at the clay table more than at the clay. So what we did was we stripped it back, put a lovely Hessian top on, a few balls of clay out and a bowl of water. And from this, the children are just using it much more and getting more out of it. They use the clay to manipulate and different things like that. They can dip their fingers into the water to make it more malleable, and they are working on fine motor skills, manipulation, rolling, squeezing, flattening, twisting and imprinting. They love to press the clay onto the Hessian to look at different imprints and different patterns also. Now moving on to our last gift and occupation, which is stick and pea. This is something that I learned from the course at Edinburgh Uni, my Froebel course I took part in there, something that I hadn't done before, and I wanted to explore it with the children, and they've been so excited to explore it. We have our pictures of our children here, and one of our children said it's got 4 sides. So problem solving is part of using the stick and pea. Children are developing language. They're looking at different mathematical language, different symbols, different 3D shapes, and discovering how to form them together. We use bone marrow peas, which you can buy in your local supermarket, and I soak them for 6 hours, usually overnight. And then by the time in the morning, I can drain the water out, and we just use cocktail sticks to stick inside the pea. So the children are again looking at safety, how they can be safe with using it, and making different shapes and patterns. And you can see in our pictures here, we've had some lovely observations from this. Now that we've mastered our stick and pea, we moved on to paper folding. This is something we're still in our infancy stages with, and we've bought an origami book. The children have been looking at different things inside, and recently we did a learning wall on animals. In our photo here, we have one of our children who was making a dog shape with the paper folding. So like I said, we're at our early stages, but we're really excited to look at different patterns, problem solving, and extend the learning even further.
We're now going to just summarise some of the main points that we've discussed with you today, which include the theory of Froebel, community, outdoor play, and gifts and occupations. We really hope that you've learned something new today that you can take away to develop at your nursery settings.
I was excited to share with you our preschool room, all of our lovely photos, and all of our experiences that we've had through our Froebel experience. We would love for you guys to try some things out at home and in your setting, and we'd love to hear some feedback of how you've got on as well. So I'll leave you with our final quote.
Yeah, just before handing it back to Michelle, we'll finish by saying, let us learn from our children. Let us attend to the knowledge which their lives gently urge upon us, and listen to the quiet demands of their hearts. We think that's a nice quote to end on. So thank you all for listening.
Thank you.